Test 1, 2.
Yep.
Privacy mode. I've seen that before. I'm not sure how to have that.
Camera's still not, like it's just black.
Oh, sure. Yep.
Do you know where the governance meeting is?
Here.
Am I early?
Yeah, it doesn't start until 9:20.
Or I'm rushing, thinking to start at 9. How are you holding up?
Good, how are you?
Is John behaving?
As good as he can.
That's exactly. Cool, thank you. Sorry to bother you. Hi, how's it going? Good.
So you gotta interrupt our order.
right.
Testing board audio, testing 1, 2.
Or he has extra. Hang on.
We have extras also.
All right, now try. Stacia, can you hear us?
I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we're having a problem with the video, but it sounds like our audio is working fine.
Sounds good.
That's great.
All right, we'll start pretty soon.
I got a gavel. I guess now I need to knock on the table. Here we go. Don't usually have a gavel for governance. Welcome to 2023, everybody. We made it. All right, let's get the governance committee going. Got to start for a motion to approve our minutes from our December 14th, 2022 meeting. Is there a motion to approve our minutes?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I move approval of the minutes.
Chairman, I would second.
All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, here we go.
You're on fire.
Yeah, man, I love starting off the year with a unanimous vote on minutes. All right, we're gonna move into section 2. And I know we're having some tech difficulties, so we moved into this room and we won't be able to see our friends from Wichita State for their campus safety and security report, but we will be able to hear them. Stacia, I hear that you are there. Can you introduce the WSU team that's on the call and give us a campus safety and security report?
Absolutely. I would love to. I have Captain Corey Hurl. He is with our Wichita State University Police Department. And he's going to take the lead and talk about all things safety, security, and Clery. And then I have our Title IX coordinator, Lucretia Taylor, also on the phone. And she is available to talk about our Office of Institutional Equity and Compliance, and specifically any Title IX questions that you have. And so
Great.
I would punt it to Corey unless you guys have questions you want to start with.
Let's hear the report first. That'd be great. You sound kind of like the voice of God in here. It's
So,
go for it.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Captain Corey Hurl with Wichita State University Police. Got the list of questions here. As far as anything Clery, we're seeing, the pre-COVID numbers come back up. Nothing that's way higher as far as the Clery Act crimes that we've seen. We have seen an increase in mental health related type calls, not necessarily crime related. Other entities on campus are well aware of this, as well as, our CAPS, our counseling and prevention services, the care team, all the services that help out with the students, faculty and staff. We've not had any really major security related incidents. However, we do continue to, we've got a campus wide door lock system, bringing, any new builds that are university builds, those are coming online with that right away. Continuing to bring all the old buildings up to speed on that system as well. We have expanded our camera system, our security camera system, specifically in housing. Continue to add, we still have emergency call boxes. We continue to add those in identified areas. Each one of those gets attached a camera system on it as well. The department added body cams for all the officers. And we're also in the process of replacing all of our radio system, so that we have that upgrade going on. Moving on to tabletop exercises or trainings, unless you have any questions on any of that.
No
Okay.
questions.
As far as tabletop exercises, an external company came in and did a university-wide tabletop during the summer. The police department, we've completed a tabletop for athletics, one in another department. We've got 2 that are on the schedule, actually, correction, 3 that are on the schedule to happen very soon, and then 6 more that are in the planning coordination stages for specifically active threat training that we're moving forward on. We've been hosting, and we have a lot of trainings that are scheduled to be hosted throughout this year. One of those we just completed was Alert, which is if you're familiar with it, it's an active threat response program based out of Texas. They're the gold standard for the federal government. They're federally government funded. The training's free. We had 22 participate, 5 from my agency participate in that, and we're hosting it again in July. If you're familiar with SANE-SART, which is Sexual Assault Nurses Examiner, Sexual Assault Response Team, we're hosting an advanced SANE-SART class with a community partner, Stepstone, here at Wichita State. We're going to be hosting with them. We already hosted a trauma-informed interviewing for, and the invite was sent out to all the regents, chiefs, and their respective departments. There was a big response on that. I believe we had over 100 attendees in that one. We're hosting a de-escalation training. That's with Fort Hays State. They developed that. We're being a host site for them. We assisted in developing trauma-informed interviewing with our Preventing Sexual Violence on Campus group. We've had all of our officers go through that training for trauma-informed interviewing. We also, with disability services here on campus, helped to create a deaf sensitivity training for the officers, how to assist in communicating with deaf populations. Communication with students and faculty. I'm sure you're all aware of the care team, campus assessment and response evaluation team here. Comprises staff across several different disciplines throughout the university. Last year, CARE received over 1,000 incident reports and served over 900 students who are in need of support or intervention. Are seeing our report numbers are high. However, a lot of them tend to be on the same people, which is a good thing. That's essentially what it's there for. It's the final focal point for reports on that different entities may see, but before the CARE, there was really no central location for that to reach out. WSU provides campus members preventing suicide training, mental distress, substance abuse training, as well as the Department of Justice bystander intervention trainings with regards to sexual violence. All the students, you know, we talk to them at orientation on on safety things specifically on campus. They're also provided with information on how to find, you know, safe residents if they're not going to live on campus, including, you know, fire safety report on what to look for when you're looking for an apartment. Specific education comes with regards to, you know, Wichita PD, they provide heat maps which show different crime density throughout the city. So people can be, you know, more aware of what's going on depending on where they, you know, want to live. We're pushing out a more of a safety program here through a Refuse to Be a Victim program that provides classes for basic safety. We're hoping to do 2 or 3 of those trainings a semester once we get all of our people trained up for that as far as instructors go. That's really it on my end, unless you have any questions.
Any questions from governance? So that was very comprehensive. Thank you.
Trying to be.
Yeah. Stacia, you have updates for us on Title IX?
Yeah, actually, I'm going to defer to Lucretia. She's our Title IX coordinator, but I'm definitely here if anyone has any questions.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Lucretia Taylor, and I am the Title IX coordinator. And I just wanted to talk about our reporting process. And we do encourage any individual who has potentially experienced sexual assault or dating violence or any other crime, make a report to law enforcement or to our office. Our policy is 3.06, which is online. Students may come in and make a report a number of ways. They can come into our office, they can call, or they can go online and report it anonymously. We do reach out to them as soon as we receive a report. The report can be made to me, can be made to our executive director or our EO coordinator. Any complaint, again, though, we do look at and we do respond to the student. We offer informal resolution. We can offer services. And then let me go back. We can offer supportive measures that can include anything from changing classroom assignments, working with professors, and also reporting them or sending them to counseling services. Corey had talked about the care team. That's one of the referral services that we do. We can provide safety escorts, supply no contact orders to students, modification of classes. So it is mainly about ensuring that a student who has a potential violation of our policy, or if there is a potential violation of our policy, knows where to report. We also conduct training, online harassment training for students and staff. And that training provides in-depth training on consent, sexual assault, bystander intervention, alcohol, dating violence, domestic violence, healthy relationships, sexual harassment, and stalking. That training is provided every academic year for students, and employees as well are trained on an annual basis. We also go out to new employee orientation for new students, and that is in person. And we also provide any additional training to student groups that will explore healthy elements of relationship and providing tools for them. One thing too that we are looking at is we are anticipating new Title IX regulations this year. We anticipate that those will be published in May of 2020. And so we will implement the new changes based upon what those are regarding the Title IX regulations. So I don't have anything additional unless you have questions of our office.
Questions from Regent Ice or Regent Harrison Lee? Look, Lucretia, how long have you been there?
I have been with the university since November of 21.
Okay. And I can't remember when we did this, but we did there was a COSN report that looked at the Title IX practices at Wichita State. So I don't know if you're the right person to answer this or if Stacia is, but from that report and the recommendations that were in it, how far along are we in following through on those, and what kind of update do you have on that?
So I will say that based upon the COSN report, we have done a number of things. One, which we hired a intake coordinator position. That is one of the things that COSN had requested that we do. And we also now have an ADA Section 504 coordinator as well, working with students who may have disability issues, making rooms and everything accessible. And so we are becoming more forward-facing along with our executive director. So I do believe that we are moving along quite well with the COSN report.
Stacia, anything you have to add to that?
No, we do continue to meet regularly about the COSN report, and we actually just hired a new executive director for our OIEC office. He was not available to introduce him today, but he is very experienced in the Title IX area, and I know he's very excited to pick this up and continue leading this. Looking through the report and just tracking in terms of what we're accomplishing, I think we are in very good shape. I think the office has worked very hard to certainly prioritize those things and focusing on ensuring timely response to complaints, education, training, and update of policies being at the top of that list.
So when we're talking about the training for employees and students, I was remembering KU's report where this was, for students in particular, it was a mandated training. Is that something that's mandated for students or available to students?
The training is mandated. I'm sorry, Stacia. It is mandated for students every academic year.
And how do you guys keep track of if someone doesn't attend or do that?
So what we do is we send out notification for those students who may not be up to date on training, just making sure that, hey, we have an actual date that we want you to be trained by. This year was November of 2022. And so all students, need to be trained. So we would send out notifications in our system. We, Shocker Blast, we send them to their email addresses. We do our communications with students to make sure that they understand that they do need to take the annual training.
I think KU, and we have a representative here in the room, he can tell me if I'm wrong, but eventually if you ignore it as a student, they'll start to turn off your ability to spend some of your preloaded card on funds in the union. Do you know? Okay. Anyway, I know that they start to turn the heat up a little bit. And what about for faculty? Is that a mandated annual training or is that optional?
Annual. No, it is not optional. It is mandatory.
Okay.
All of our training is.
Then the other thing I remember being concerning in that report was, essentially the number of reports that you got to the number that were investigated. I can't remember. It was like 170 to 25 or something like that. It was really dramatic. How are you guys doing as far as when you're getting an intake of reports, following through on follow up on those?
So we do follow up. We are averaging about 171 unique incidents. So I think that is, again, that's coming off of COVID and students being back, but we do investigate if we need to. A lot of times what happens is a student will file a report. We will reach out to them as mandated by our policy and Title IX regulations and give them their options as to what they want to do. And then investigate those matters that we deem that we need to investigate and investigate to a resolution.
Do you know how many are not being followed up on, or are you guys able to get to all of them?
We get to all of them. We follow up on every single report that we have. Yes, we do.
Station, any additional color you want to bring in any of that color commentary?
No, I will add that the mandatory student training, we've been working through a couple of different carrot and sticks on that. And so we are definitely, that's something we're focused in on. We started with holds, and that actually presented some complications because the training is online, but we are actively examining some carrot and sticks for that. And I'm excited to hear that KU has found something that may work for them. So I'm going to reach out and talk with them further about that.
And I may be misunderstanding, but it'd be great for you to get clarity on that. All right. Thank you both, Lucretia, Stacia. Appreciate that. Chief, we appreciate the updates. Any other things that we need to focus on this campus safety report? Wichita State, we're good. All right. Thank you all for joining the call. We appreciate it.
Very well done. Thank you.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. I'm going to move to Julene to present on the Promise Act regulations topic. This is just a discussion item, so no action required from us.
Yes, sir.
Yep.
Attachment 2 under tab 2 of your materials. It includes an issue paper and describing what the regulations do, but also a full set of the regulations, full text. These were developed in consultation with the eligible institutions and their representatives over a 2-year period of time. It's been a while. And we're now at the tail end of the Rule and Regulation Filing Act process. There's only one change that was requested by the Joint Committee on Administrative Rules and Regulations, and that was to KAR 889A6. So that's why that one looks different in your packet. That particular change and the regulations still need to be approved by the Attorney General's office. We're in the process of getting that approval. Hopefully we'll have all of our ducks in a row by the February board meeting, and we'll be able to bring the regulations to the full board for adoption in February. We're putting them on your agenda today to give this committee an opportunity to preview the regulations before we bring them to the full board and to receive any feedback that you might have with regard to these.
They looked really expansive and very official with the 2 stamps on them. Were there any issues that came up that were of particular difficulty to, 3 institutions want to do it this way, other institutions wanted to do it this way, or has it been pretty straightforward of just laying out a defined process?
I would say the most difficult thing throughout this regulation process was the fact that they significantly changed the statute last year. So we started the reg process right after they enacted the original bill. We had like 2 months to stand up the program. So after that was done, we started working on the regulations. And then we realized early on in the 2022 session that the law wasn't going to be the same at the end of that session as what we had based the original set of regulations on. So we sort of put a hold on it for a little while to see what the end result of the legislation was going to be. And then we had to not start from scratch, but there were a lot of changes. And what ended up in these regulations is basically what the legislature told us we had to have in a regulation. So they're very, there may be there's 6 of them, 7 of them, and it looks like a lot, but it's really what they told us they wanted in regulation form. So
as far as the different, the different groups involved in this, there's not any disharmony around any piece.
Not that I have heard. We did meet with them again early on, and they had some suggested changes and some thoughts for us to consider, and we did do that. I'm sure we didn't make every change that every person would have liked to have seen, but we did listen and take it into consideration and made several.
Okay. All right. Those are my questions. Regent Harrison Lee, Regent Ice, anything to? All right.
I just appreciate the work. I recall earlier the discussion about getting the funding and trying to determine what the rules were and how we would really send it out. So I appreciate the work that you all have done on this. Thank you.
Dr. Flanders.
Yes, so we did have some questions in a hearing from legislators, really wanting more teeth around if someone was defaulting, have they done their best effort to, try to make good on those debts? And our issue there is we cannot be stricter than the legislation. So you've heard of maybe some narrative about, well, agencies are actually making law by regulations. We're very sensitive to that, so we don't do that. And so, what I said is, if they want that to be more stringent, then they have to change the statute and make it more stringent. We can't do that on our own. So.
Thanks for the grind on this. Looking like
You
we're
bet.
headed down the right path. So we'll look forward to seeing it in February.
Thank you. And I guess I will say, even if I don't get all the approvals we need for that one regulation, I anticipate bringing the rest of them because we have a March 1 deadline to get these in place.
We'll do our best to help you get there. All right, BC. Brief update on CEO assessment process. Julie.
Very, very brief. I just had 2 pieces of information I wanted to share with the committee on this topic. And the first is that we have scheduled an orientation session for Regents Benson, Dicus, and Mendoza to provide them information similar to what we did last year for the 3 new regents about the CEO assessment tool that the board is currently using in the process for compiling the regents' assessments to use them to inform the consensus statement draft and the face-to-face evaluation of each CEO. So we'll have that next Monday afternoon. And we then are also planning to give plenty of time for them to have questions about anything other than the assessment process, if they have anything else that's come up that they want to be oriented on at that time.
Yeah, this is just in the spirit of how we broke it up. Yeah, there's only so much you can swallow on your first one. Yep, that's great.
Yes, and the timing to try to get the information to them right ahead of when they're going to start seeing these things. So it makes sense to them, I think, when it comes in.
Great. Any
Hopefully,
questions for-
hopefully that's how it worked last year. I don't.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I presume there's really no change to process, right?
Pardon? There's
No
no,
change to the process.
no, not this year. Mm-mm.
Just be sure to tell them you can only hit submit once. You can't unthrow that. So, or you'll have to call, Renee on Sunday.
Yes,
So,
highlighted that. Don't hit submit until you're done because otherwise you have to start over. Yeah.
All right.
So the second piece of information on that topic was to let you know that we made a change to the timeline that I previously brought to you. We decided it would be better to have a regional president in the first round rather than a research president in the first round. So we switched Linton and Mason. And the reason for that is we have more data that we need to collect for the research university presidents, and we didn't want to run into a problem having all the data ready in time. The way this works is we get their self-assessment for that first round is February 22nd, and we're supposed to get them their data so that they can create their self-assessment at least a month in advance of that. So we need to get that data out to her January 22nd. So we just made that change, and I wanted to put it on the record that it's different than what I brought to you in September, the timeline.
Let the record reflect the change of the record.
Thank you.
All right. Anything else? Questions on that subject? Okay. Thank you, Julene. On to other matters. I'm going to call back on Julene. Chair, Vice Chair nomination process.
So my understanding was that this committee still wanted to talk about this. If not, just.
I think we've got it settled, but maybe there's new information,
No, I was just going to throw out a possible process that you could consider, but if you've already got it figured out, then.
I'm always open to suggestions. I don't know if you guys, I'd love to hear what you have to say.
My thinking was just based on what I've heard you all talk about, is that have a complete, you want them to, as I understand it, you want them to have a complete slate of nominees before they make decisions on who to support. And one way maybe to do that is to have regents communicate to the chair by a certain date. I threw in March 1st, 2023 for this year, their desire to be nominated for either chair or vice chair. And then the current chairman would relay that information after the deadline to all of the regents so that they would know in advance who is interested. Before you then have it on the agenda to actually have official nominations and the election or the vote. Proposing that the chair be the person to do this because that's the least likely person to want to be nominated for one of those positions in the following year.
Such a rough job. I'm just kidding.
You can only do it 1 year at a time, right? It wouldn't be reduced to policy, and I'm not suggesting that we write it down anywhere, but that except in the minutes. If this is something that you're interested in doing, we'd record it in the minutes, and then we would make sure that the new chair and all of the regents understand what the process is at, in the January, February timeframe, so that they would be able to participate if they want to.
Questions or comments from Regent Ice or Regent Harrison Lee?
I want to say this carefully. I mean, we listened to your input carefully last time and did think we should not make new policy and we should modify all in process. And I think what you just talked about very much matches what we were in large part gyrating towards. So I think recording it and making sure everybody understands that, I think they do, but making sure they understand it is a good thing. The only thing I think I would throw out, I like the idea of making a meeting our deadline. So that can be a face-to-face conversation. So perhaps it's the February meeting as opposed to March 1.
Okay,
That's just one person's opinion.
the February board meeting would be the deadline.
Yeah, but that's my opinion. That's only one of. And then, I agree the chair should do it, but I do feel the need to say, it's not because I think if the chair happened to have an interest in something that they couldn't be unbiased and do a wonderful job still of taking all the names. I'm sure they could.
Yeah, it's really just a relay of names. Yep.
Right.
Yep. Regent Harrison Lee, any questions or comments?
So if I understand this.
Oh, microphone. There you go.
So if I understand correctly, your proposal, those names would go to the chair, and I like the approach that Regent Ice suggested. And then the chair is just going to present that slate to the regents. I mean, because I'm trying to figure out, and maybe it's not, so maybe I should say the list.
Yeah.
The list.
Well, I'm not even sure there would be a
But-
list. I
Well-
was thinking more in terms of gathering the information. People would contact the chair by a certain date. He or she would then have that information to share with other regions. I would just make individual phone calls to each regent to say, here's who is interested. Just,
And talk to them and we'll vote. When do we vote, in April or May?
we've been voting
May.
in May so that we have someone in place to be able to start preparing for the retreat.
So then the chair gets the list
The unwritten list.
or the
Yeah.
whatever, the back of the napkin.
Interested parties is all, yeah.
Okay, so the chair is made aware of interested parties. And then he or she is making calls to those interested parties or to all the regions.
All the
saying-
regions to let
to
them know
say-
who the interested parties are.
The goal was that people were being approached prior to knowing who all was interested. And so, hey, if you're interested, and then it kind of levels the playing field. So, Julian and John are interested in these roles. And so, hey, hear from both of them, what they think, what are they thinking and all that. And then, before we vote. So I don't know if I'm trying to remember, I know there's been debate between whether we should vote in April or May. If it's gonna be May, then you really don't need people to submit till the March meeting. You know, and so what we could do is say, hey, just let the chair know by the March meeting. Then you have till the May meeting to talk to people and hear what, what they're thinking. And it does, and it's probably important as we're talking about this, just that, this is really, we're setting up tradition more than policy. So I mean, it doesn't preclude someone if they, the day of the vote, they want to submit their name out there. But we're just trying to create a process, I think, for people to be able to know who they need to talk to, who's interested. So that they can, does that make sense? That's the way I'm hearing it.
And I don't want to overreact to a couple of words, but just to make sure, I mean, the chair will actually want to be the one that would create the names. People would tell the chair would then have all of them. And then it would go out, not the chair would get, quote unquote, get the list. Maybe that means the same thing, but so, and before I urged April, and I think I was beaten down, so I'll not bring it up again, but but I think April, I do think April's better than May myself, but for the vote.
Is there a reason?
No, and I was going to clarify too, regardless when you have your vote, the actual changing of the guard doesn't occur until July 1.
Understood.
Right.
It just helped gives us more runway to prepare, but
right.
Was it, Cheryl, I'm trying to remember, was it you that wanted to wait till May, or is there?
Well,
April, I'm comfortable with April, but I don't know the pros and cons beyond the pros that gives more time.
She's checking the bylaws too, to see if we actually had to amend the bylaws to make it May rather than June. And
I think we did. And so we kind of had this conversation, and we would need to amend the bylaws. And I guess I was thinking, we had July was the date that the transition would occur. And between May and June, it seemed like when we were planning the retreat, it seemed like it was sufficient time to be able to kind of pull it together. So I wasn't looking to just amend the bylaws. I typically would amend them only if it's problematic.
Well, I think
And so
that's perhaps why I withdraw through the last time, because I don't want to amend the bylaws either.
That's what
I mean, I guess I felt slightly different about the time frame this last time, not because it's not enough time, but we tried to have face-to-face meetings, and just finding face-to-face meetings, even in a 2-month period, is not always easy. If you're trying to schedule them only after the election has happened, right? So no, we're not going to start setting up the June meeting right now. So, but making work, I'm fine with that.
Well,
Because we were, when we were talking earlier, we were thinking, okay, we needed to go through that process of notice and reading and amending.
okay, well, we'll go with May this year. And so
And I guess to state the obvious, I think the most important thing about this isn't for any of this process. It's so the regents all know when someone talks to them that they can comfortably keep their powder dry, because there's going to be a time that they know everybody. And that's when they really should start to think about what their inclinations are.
okay, we'll see how it goes this year. Thank you. So
Sure.
I'd say, what I'll communicate to the regions, let me know by the March meeting.
Okay.
What your level of interest is and leadership and what that looks like. And then I can relay that out to all the other members. And then people can have whatever conversations they want to leading up to a May vote. Does that work?
Sure.
Party on, Wayne.
very good.
Don't even need a vote on that.
Oh, thank you.
No one wanted to say party on, Garth, but I understand why. All right.
I'm sorry, I was thinking about it, so I missed that. Would you give us another chance?
All right, I'll work on that. Maybe at adjournment.
Be excellent to one another.
Yeah.
I'll make a straight transition.
Anything else on that? Okay. Okay, John, can you present on the board policy on affiliation?
Yes, I can.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you. You do have President Mason's on the agenda at the board meeting this afternoon to bring forward some proposed legislation on an affiliation matter. So we just wanted to take some time to highlight for you the fact that we do have an existing affiliation policy. It's in Chapter 3 of the board manual policy, Section A, subsection 15. And it lays out the principles and guidelines for institutional affiliations with universities and kind of just highlights the kind of things that the board would expect someone proposing an affiliation to bring forward and what things should be addressed, including the benefits of and reasons for the proposal, the mission of the affiliated institution if affiliation moves forward, something that would define the authority and responsibilities of any local boards that are retained, responsibility for physical plant, employee issues, just kind of covering the things that we would expect to see covered in quality of and access to academic programs, a budget analysis, and administrative efficiencies, that those be identified. You know, if this affiliation goes forward, you know, what would we expect to see in those things, or what are you proposing would happen? So we have that process in place now, if that, or at least that policy is in the book now. So just in case anyone was questioning whether or not we.
And I assume everything about the proposed affiliation is in line with that policy. I didn't see anything that was out of it.
So some of that's yet to be determined. If the board approves the proposed legislation going forward, obviously the legislature would have to enact it. And then we would anticipate that there would be an affiliation document that would be prepared if it moves forward, that would address all these things that would come to you in the future for consideration.
How long does that process take once it gets, if the legislature approves it? Is that another year, or is that 2 months? What is?
Well, so the most recent one was WSU Tech. I believe was it 2 or 3 years? Because there was
a delay in the passage of the statute.
Right.
So, but once the statute passed, I believe it moved very quickly.
And I think I'm probably just speaking and I shouldn't be, but I think for the WSU Tech, they had most of these issues ironed out by the time the legislation passed. So the timing is a little different on this one than it was on theirs.
I just want to make sure we're prepared to move as quickly as they would want to. And then, go ahead.
Oh, please, I'm sorry.
No, I was pivoting to a different.
Well, I guess I had a slightly different perspective about, I mean, I was a little troubled by the policy. It says, I quote, "The proposal must include an appropriate feasibility study with third-party validation of the data." I was not aware we were anticipating such a thing. On page 25 of our documents. And if that comes after we've approved, then I mean, I don't understand how it's helpful. I mean,
I'm not sure we exactly followed our policy the last time exactly, because I don't think we had that.
So I guess I don't think we can say, yes, we're in alignment, but maybe I'm sure I don't fully understand a big time affiliation policy operation.
Well, I thought there was a feasibility study done. Yeah, that was
Maybe there was.
my confusion. On this one, I thought they'd already.
I don't remember third-party validation, but
Well, they will have HLC accreditation, and that's built into the statute that accreditation, that HLC approval piece has to happen for the statute to take effect and the affiliation to be effective. So I don't know if that can be considered part of the third party.
if that works, good by me. I just would have said a strict read to make this makes it more sound like we're talking about the benefits and the students and a lot broader conversation.
Yes. So and pardon me if I'm not understanding, but the legislation is to make sure that we have the authority to do what needs to be done for this particular affiliation to occur. So for instance, you have a statutorily created governmental entity that is no longer going to have the same responsibilities and functions that statutorily it has been given. So in order for that to happen, you have to change the statute.
That's not what I'm focused on.
Yeah, he's focused on the third party feasibility.
And the fact it says, I mean, if you tell me we're okay, I'm fine. I just don't want a technical default here that then we say we're outside of our proposal. It says the proposal must include a feasibility study and validation. That seems to me proposal sounds early in the process to me, not late. So again, you tell us we're okay, I'm fine, but I don't, again, the last thing we need is some discussion that we didn't follow our own policy.
Yeah, okay. I guess I am viewing the affiliation agreement or the document that John mentioned, which comes later to this board as well as to the two colleges for approval, to be the proposal, because it'll be more fleshed out and it will have
Okay,
more of this information in it.
I think that's worthwhile somewhere in the approvals today then to say that. So
Okay.
that the regents all have comfort that we're in alignment with our policy.
Right. I think,
Any question from any other agency would not.
Okay.
Little a agency, not capital A,
right.
we would know why we think we're okay.
Yeah, if I understand it correctly, what we're doing this month is approving a conceptual piece of legislation to go forward to this legislative session, and an MOU that basically is a commitment to continue working toward this affiliation, not approving the final thing yet, because we don't have all the
So it uses,
pieces ironed out.
so it uses, I see where the confusion is here too. So it uses language proposal over and over again. And so the definition of proposal isn't what we're voting on today. The
Right.
definition of proposal is something that we'll vote on later. That is, what'd you call them? Something in tittles? The jots and tittles of the agreement.
No, Blake.
As long as that means we believe we're conceptually approving the strategic direction, to me, that's what we're doing today.
Yes.
And then, of course, once you do that, if details break down, you don't move forward, but I think we want to be able to say we've approved that directionally, we think this is the right approach. And not, we have to have some study that's going to come and verify for us that's true. Okay, I think I'm okay now, but please, if you would, just
I
Keep
guess
thinking about it.
it determine, so how you define appropriate, I guess, inside of this, as an appropriate feasibility study.
and you could get past that until you get to the third party validation of the appropriate.
Okay,
Just
I'm glad you highlighted that. John?
Oh, the last line says, these principles may be revised as necessary in the future. So maybe those are things as we work through this, we looked whether or not we need to modify anything.
That makes perfect sense. Again, maybe I'm over worried, but I think even a technical violation would not be helpful when you're legislation.
Mr. Chair. I would tend to agree with Regent Ison. I kind of like what you said, that we can revise them in the future, that we look at it. Because it leaves a gray area for interpretation that if, depending on who's looking at it, could create some consternation for parties. So it might be worth just tweaking it a little bit to clean it up.
Well, yeah, I just.
I mean, I'm good with us saying for this one that we're, I'm good with our council's interpretation and saying that we're good. And for the process that we have
I've always
now.
understood that this is a part of the process. I mean, yes, it's feasible. And then, the fact that they're accredited accounts for the third party validation that, yes, this is feasible to deliver on what the first sentence is, to increase student access to higher education. It's enhance the quality and variety of academic programs. So want you guys stew on that a little bit. We can talk to WSU and WSU Tech to see what that looked like, Fort Hays State and the two. And make sure that this is still the proper language around that in the process. It'd be hard for me to pull out language that says, hey, we want to make sure this thing's feasible. But what that means, what it's done, what the precedent's been too. And then we can figure out if it needs to be tweaked.
Yeah, I wasn't arguing for we have to tweak it as much as I don't want to rely on it can change from time to time. I want to rely on that what we're doing is in accord with what the appropriate interpretation of this is, which you've explained how that could be. So just bring that back to us and I think we're fine.
Other questions or comments?
I've got one other item.
Yes, let's move on to one other item here.
Other.
Uh, Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to briefly bring up Governor Laura Kelly's executive order number 2210, which bans TikTok from state networks and state devices. And just let the board know that for our agency, we'll be following that executive order. We've had that conversation. I think it's something that's appropriate for us here at this agency.
And that is not something that the board needs to vote on.
No.
Right. But probably good for us just to update to the rest of the board, just so they know that.
Yeah, that if you want to make a TikTok video on our network, it's going to be real hard to probably. So
Can I still do it today?
yeah, no,
Yeah.
we've actually, I think Steve's already.
I've been practicing my dance in the mirror like for 2 weeks.
So
Probably a secondary benefit of this.
And you already used the word gyrations earlier, so I won't use it. in TikTok video. All right, so and then our thought is to let the universities manage this for themselves and determine where
Yes.
they need to be. But for our office, I agree with the decision that you guys made. So thanks for that. And if you'll include that in your report,
Okay.
or if you want me to, one of us needs to put it in the report.
I can put it in my report. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Any other matters, old or new, to come before this board? You have a favorite TikTok video?
Have TikToks.
All right.